to an estate sale many years ago, and was of a martial artist. And we got boxes and boxes and boxes of old martial arts magazines that he'd been collecting since the 60s, 70s. And while we gave many of them away as gifts, we still have a sizable collection. And I've decided to go through the ones from the 70s today, some of which are more than 50 years old. And I think they offer really interesting insights into how martial arts has changed, specifically karate, and what hasn't changed in all those years. So let's start with the first one. Okay, we have black belt. I hope it's not inverted. From 1971, so 54 years old. It was the grand total of $1, and I've chosen a few bits and pieces to chat about. The first one I want to get into, and perhaps like one of the most interesting ones, is they used to do a black belt magazine survey in which they would interview and find out how many people did a certain martial art or how many people were practicing a martial art. So the statistics here from 50 odd years ago, there were 120,000 karate practitioners, 29,500 judo practitioners. So as overall, these are the two dominant martial arts back then. So I got some modern stats I'll go into. Very interesting Japanese style, other styles, Okinawan styles, 17%. Here we see the breakdown of women, what percentage were women. So of that 120,000 practitioners for martial arts, only 18,000 were women. Someone who's good at maths can do the maths in the comments. And then talking about which federations were the most dominant back then. And that led me to go dig up some stats in my scrappy handwriting about how different is it today. Now, unfortunately, these stats are very American-centric, but they have the best numbers that I could find. Unfortunately, in my own country, in South Africa, it's very difficult to pin down these numbers. So since 2012, there's been an 18.7% growth in the number of martial arts businesses. And in 2022, obviously, this one article was written just before COVID, was projected to be an industry worth $9.05 billion. Then in 2022, karate was fourth, according to Gym Desk. The highest earning style was MMA, and then karate. Fourth was after MMA, boxing, then BJJ. The United States has 16 times more schools, karate schools or martial arts schools than the next country, which is surprisingly to me, Australia. At the time, there's a franchise called Tiger Rock Martial Arts. They have 158 branches in the United States alone. It's a Taekwondo school. And even with that many branches, they only have 1.8% of market share, which just boggles the mind how big martial arts is in the States. It's not a big business here, but I can see in the United States that it's a very, very competitive market. One figure I found says that in 2024 says that 18 million Americans have tried martial arts, karate specifically, in the last year, which, I mean, as a percentage of the population, 320 million, 10% would be 32 million. So 5% of Americans have tried karate in the last year. And I do think we have Cobra Kai to thank for a lot of that. Whatever people feel about it in terms of the plot and the writing, you can't deny that it's done so much for karate. 3.9 million Americans do martial arts consistently, and adults are 3 times more likely to start than kids, which I find very interesting because we, in our dojo particularly, have more kids trying, but we do have a very healthy adult beginner group. Then the one stats I found from Kenko in 2024, by the way, these will all be in the description. So according to this, the biggest schools have changed a little bit, but to be fair, they used Yelp, which I'm not sure is the best form of stats, but interesting nonetheless. 26% of the businesses were boxing, 20% BJJ, and then karate down to 5% and Krav Maga 2%. Whereas the other numbers, karate came fourth with a much higher percentage. Simmons research, now this is the one number I could find about what percentage of martial artists are women. One number I found said 48% of people starting out or trying are women, which is great. It's a big improvement. One number says 30%. So It's very hard to pinpoint this because I think with all the fracturing of federations around the world and people not necessarily submitting numbers, there isn't like a global karate census. I did see one number from WKF a while ago of 220 million global practitioners, and I think it'll be interesting to see the numbers break down on that. So I think some things have changed in that regard. We are definitely seeing more women. Hi Kevin, on our channel, interestingly, 20% of our viewers are women. In my dojo, we are about a 60-40 split. So that tracks. I saw this great article called The Dojo First Aid Box by a Dr. R.B. Jack. I think there's some good advice in here. Accidents will happen even in the most carefully supervised dojo, which it does. There's always going to be bumps and bruises, and sometimes there'll be a little bit of a psychosomatic injury. So it's always important to have those magical placebo healing plasters for the kids. The practical first aid box should contain the following: antiseptic lotion. It goes on through all the things that we would normally have: plastic bags, gauze, plasters. We've got eye drops. Some things that I like here that, hi Daniel, we get, that we need to add to our box is tongue depressors or popsicle sticks to splint fingers, which is also a great idea. I hadn't thought about that. One thing here that we can't do legally, he puts here, should have aspirin. Hello, Stefan. Hello. It's so nice to see the regulars all pulling in now. By law, you actually can't give anyone medicine, even if they ask you for it. You can only receive medicine legally from a pharmacy or someone with a degree. If I give someone, either in my family or my dojo, even if they say, Sensei, do you have a headache tablet? I don't give it to them, because if there's an adverse reaction, I'm legally on the line. So I think when I first started training, it was okay. You could go grab a Disprin from someone, you could get something from Sensei. But I would say for best practice now, don't dispense any medicine. The only thing would be if that child has an EpiPen and you're going to do the EpiPen for them. And remember the rule, blue to the sky, orange to the thigh, which side you need to jab in. And obviously, if they're having an asthma attack, you can help them administer their own asthma. But more than that, I would say stay very far away from having any medicine. We've got, in addition to our physical things, we've got FAR bars and Cramposalt and Crampies for cramps, which happens when we're fighting a lot. And then obviously your glucose sachets, for the kids that are going the same color as their karate suit, they're starting to go pale. We are seeing an issue with kids not eating enough. Not only just before they come to karate, obviously don't eat too much, you want to have a light snack, but we are seeing a thing where teenagers specifically are not eating enough. And now they're arriving at the dojo, they are gassed out very easily, they just don't have the energy to train. So keep an eye on your students and your kids regarding this issue. It never hurts for you to have a frank discussion about nutrition and health, and maybe they might not listen to their parents, but they might listen to you. So that's part of the responsibility of being a sensei. Yeah, I really like that. I thought that was a very handy article. Let's go to now, these magazines are riddled with these kind of ads. Chinese Kung Fu, the total self-defense system, or of course with what we call in graphic design a chop suey font. And yeah, no, I hate them. They have no place. This is a very 70s, 80s things. I still occasionally see it on dojo websites, and to use the language of the youth, that is cringe. But throughout every single one of these magazines, you'll find these ads for fear no man with your first lesson. You start using these destructive self-defense methods to render any bully twice your size absolutely helpless in seconds. Cool, I'd love to learn that. Become a terrifying destructive self-defense fighting machine in just 12 short lessons. Cool. This theme continues throughout all the magazines I've read. And then, interestingly, a lot of ads for briefs that are not, don't create lines, which I guess is nice under your karate suit. And then every single one of them had this ad, how to pick up girls, which just goes to show that what is called negging now, pickup artists, is as old as time. Obviously, they knew the market that was reading these magazines. So you'll often find the pickup artist magazines. The occasional, then obviously, this is all before, it's worth remembering that before the internet, this was it. This was the blog, because there's articles in here and comments and people could write letters in. This was your ordering guide. This was your catalog. This was your Amazon. This was your reference for techniques, because especially in South Africa where VHSs were very difficult to come by. Do my dogs have to make noise now? You would learn bunkai from a magazine. Please bear with me one moment. Dogs inside, I'm live streaming. Before this goes out to the general public, don't worry, I'll edit that part out. But it's nice to sit here with the members, the ones who are really invested in the channel. So yeah, like I was saying, but long before we had the internet, this was the internet of karate and martial arts in general. So this one was from October 1973 for a whole 60 cents. Oh, I missed one here. This is something I think we need more of. Here, we have a lovely example of a very dedicated tournament doctor. Don't you love the wild shirt? I think that's so much fun. He would be at every tournament. He'd help reset people's noses. He'd help with splints, help with injuries. We are very lucky to have a doctor training in our dojo, and he volunteered to assist at a tournament. And he was shocked that there was no head injury protocol. That if the athlete failed certain conditions, they weren't allowed back on the mat. And I know the major problem is getting people with such incredible qualifications to volunteer their time for tournaments, especially since they go on all day. And when you're a doctor, if you're not working, if you're a GP, if you're not working, you're not eating. So I would love to see more tournament doctors. I do think there's a surprisingly high percentage of black belts who are doctors. I think it's very much that same type A personality mindset. This one. This interests me. You too can be more successful as an ATA karate instructor. Now, when I read that, I thought, okay, what are they selling? No, just become a Taekwondo instructor. It's fine. Don't do karate anymore. Become a Taekwondo instructor. If you watched my interview 2 weeks ago with Noah Legal, we were talking about the influence of Taekwondo on the dojoism of karate. And here it says, regardless of the size of your club or school, and regardless of present rank, style, affiliation, if you desire to better yourself and your students, the American Taekwondo Association can help you and would feel privileged to have you as a member. And then, of course, you could just mail in this coupon here at the bottom, and they would send you everything you needed. And they make a very convincing argument for the benefits of joining their federation. You get a training manual with 3,420 photographs. You will always be welcome to participate in free, personal, and private instruction. So basically, the ATA will help you promote your club, provide you materials, new member contests, etc., etc. So I found that a bit sad, this idea that one of the best ways to make money was just to stop teaching karate altogether and to teach Taekwondo. Then, one last thing I want to read or share with you is this beautiful letter written by the editor. Black Belt Magazine, July 1971. The editorial from Sensei Uehara talks about, during the past decade, we have received hundreds of letters from youngsters seeking our guidance. Many have been self-conscious, awkward loners, but through the martial arts they found themselves. Now they want to repay or return something to the arts by becoming instructors. After all, if the arts helped them, why couldn't others be helped too? And then he goes on about, and I'll read out the pertinent parts, but he talks about how these young instructors who are starting with the best of intentions, who want to give back, often meet a lot of roadblocks and obstacles, and they're not always external roadblocks. So, to become a good instructor, the student must be willing to work hard without any reward. He must not expect praise from his sensei, nor be surprised if he impedes his progress. If the sensei is not an obstacle, someone above him will be. The heads of most martial arts organizations are quite concerned with controlling their groups year after year. To them, the prestige of the offices they hold is the only accomplishment they have to show. Any aggressive young man who attempts to wrestle their titles away from them will find himself in the doghouse. Many sensei will do anything to discourage an individual from achieving his goal. Then it goes on to say, if after all the harassment, the student still wants to help make this a better world, he must not expect to have the finer things in life. The rate and turnovers within the dojo is heavy. More students quit than stay. This is true. There aren't too many dojo that are self-sufficient. Apologies for that noise. John, could you just be quiet for a little bit? Sorry, I'm just making a video. Thank you. Okay. Life goes on around the dojo. I'm a busy working dojo. Anyway, sorry, apologies for the interruption. To meet this problem, many sensei is free of rent, church halls, or YMCAs. Still, a sensei must be almost like a priest or monk. His dedication must be sincere beyond question, or he may do more harm than good to the arts, himself, and the public. I think that's a very, very good point. This is not an easy lifestyle. It's one of the reasons why there is a 3-year deshiship, to show you that this is the other side of what this life is. Not just the difficulty of creating lesson plans and teaching and administration and marketing, but that you will, if you're doing your job right, become a little bit of a lighthouse, and people will turn to you, and you have always the mantle of sensei. You can't just take it off when it suits you. You can't separate those boxes, because I can't be posting myself on Facebook, for example, with, having tequila, or, I have to set a good example because kids look up to me. And I'm fine with that. I really have no problem with that. But I think a lot of people expect that they'll be able to separate those parts of their lives. And unfortunately, and even more in this day and age, that's just not an option. So when you take on this life, and it is a life, because I don't do this for 2 hours a week, this is my full-time job and it's my vocation, it does mean a lot of sacrifice. And it does mean that you do have to get used to people coming and going. And once you accept that 95% of people are going to leave you, because that's life. No one's married to the dojo. I'm married to the dojo. Shay's married to the dojo. But no one's married to us in the building. So of course we understand that people are going to come and go. And I think for new instructors, that can be really, really hard to get used to. I know I struggled with it in the beginning. And one who thinks he's going to make a bundle by teaching the martial arts cannot become a great sensei. It is impossible to have integrity and still place money before teaching. Who can think primarily about financial profit and still be truly concerned about his students? This type of sensei doesn't give a second thought about whether his students will become better men and assets to the arts. Unfortunately, we have too many sensei of this caliber today. We hope the future will bring us more dedicated instructors who will overcome the obstacles and emerge as leaders for better martial arts in the United States and a better world. I do think this goes back to, if you look at the article in the bottom there, and it talks about the very successful franchise dojos. If you look at them, they are very, very obviously like big money-making machines. You can see it in the suits, you can see it in the enrollments. That's more about creating as many black belts as you can, rather than the best black belts that you can. And I think when you choose that path, it's very much about the money. I do think you can make a legitimate earning as an instructor, and you can still balance your dojo's standards with your balance sheet. It is very, very hard though. I wrote an article about this called The Difficulty of Balancing Budo and Business for Bugeisha magazine. And, it is very difficult. There are times you're going to have to make decisions like, I can't let this person pass black belt. It's just not good enough. And accepting that you might lose them as a student. But you also have to uphold the standard of your dojo. And you have to take that short-term knock in order to maintain the reputation and integrity of your dojo. So sometimes it is really hard to do what we do. And I think people are hoping that, it's all going to be, people will admire you and people will respect you, and you're going to have adoring fans, and you can start the cult of sensei. But it's not about that. It's about using karate as a tool to make better people. I've always believed in that. rather than creating elite athletes or going to tournaments and winning medals and winning trophies. There's a place for that. And some dojos, that's the only way they can make their bread and butter, is to be a tournament dojo. And power to them. Someone has to do it. It can't be me. I've never been a tournament girly. I've been a traditional girly all my life. I don't know that tournament life. And I respect the dojos that do, because they are dealing with the most narcissistic kind of parent there is. We don't attract what I call PFPs, PTPs, pushy tournament parents. They're in any sports code. They're the ones standing at the side of the soccer field or at baseball, at Little League, screaming at 5-year-olds. Unfortunately, if you do have competition, you're going to attract that type of parents. And I think you deserve blood money for that, because that's a pain in the butt. So I think in summation, everyone's been complaining about the same things for 50 years, that it's hard to move up in the ranks, that if you want to make money, you have to sell out, that there will always be someone willing to make a quick buck off lazy or gullible people by promising them how to learn the death touch. That hasn't changed. That we should be cognizant of our first aid kits and how we teach and how we look after our students. Good to see that the growth in martial arts since the 70s, and I think that's a cumulative effect of both Hollywood and YouTube and UFC, and for what it's worth, all these things that are making martial arts a lot less niche than used to be. Actually, I think it's become very mainstream to do martial arts. It used to be kind of like a nerd, niche-y thing. So that's a good thing. That's something that's improved. So yeah, one of my favorite artists or writers, Austin Kleon, he wrote Steal Like an Artist, but he points out that magazines are time capsules. You can time travel through these. So I think it's very interesting to see what life was like. I hope when this goes to the larger public that Sensei Terry will weigh in on, because he's been part of karate in America since the very early days and has watched its growth and its change and all the federations and everything splitting. And likewise in South Africa, we have a very different history and a very different perspective, but I think we also have some of the same issues. So thank you very much for joining me on a Friday morning for a quick little live stream. Try to get back into the habit of posting regularly and getting up back into it and providing the content that you, our members, so graciously support. And I'll always be grateful to you. Thank you so much for your time. If you have anything you want to add in the comments, I've got a few minutes before I have to rush off to do the next task. A big box has arrived from our suppliers, so I'm going to have fun going through that and separating out people's stuff. You're so welcome, Mia. Thank you for being one of the few, the proud, the brave. I know it's hard for moms to start anything. Actually, one of the stats I saw was something like 40% of students are under 18 and families do modern martial arts together, and I think that's a huge component of success. If someone gets to black belt, is that parental or familial support. You can't get to black belt without your parents or your family or any kind of support, without a dojo. It takes a whole dojo to make a black belt. Greetings from South Africa all the way to Germany. My husband's practicing his German. You'd love to have a chat. But thank you everyone so much. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will be back online hopefully soon. Take care. This will go out again at 5 o'clock South African time with some edits. You're all the best. Thank you so much for being supporters, and have a beautiful, beautiful day. Cheers, cheers, cheers.